Welcome to 13 Degrees of Screams,
where we scream so you don't scream.
We're your host, Alex.
And Stephanie.
And this week, we eat something we definitely shouldn't in Swallow.
Before we get started, make sure you subscribe and click the bell to be notified when we post new episodes.
Swallow is a 2019 psychological thriller film written and directed by Carlo Mirabella Davis. Its plot follows a young woman who, emotionally stifled in her marriage and domestic life, develops an impulse to consume inedible objects. It has an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes with a critical consensus that states, Swallow's unconventional approach to exploring domestic ennui is elevated by a well-told story and Haley Bennett's powerful leading performance. It also has a 70% audience score.
We follow Hunter, a young woman who has recently married a real piece of shit named Richie Conrad, a man from a wealthy family who is primed to take over as CEO of his father's Manhattan corporation. This allows Hunter to live a seemingly comfortable life as a stay-at-home wife in their lavish upstate New York home. However, she's stifled by her role and constantly worries about making Richie happy, even though he is often distant and inconsiderate. Man can't even stay off his phone for a full conversation, and she has to ask him to plant flowers in their yard.
I feel so lucky.
She soon learns that she's pregnant. At a dinner to celebrate with Richie's parents, Michael and Catherine, he urges her to tell a story from her childhood, but Michael cuts her off to talk about work with Richie because he too is a real piece of shit. This bothers Hunter and she finds her own way to say it.
I don't think there's anything.
Sorry. This ice is totally awesome.
Catherine takes a small amount of interest in Hunter. We learn from their brief conversation that Hunter used to work retail, and his mother tells her blatantly to grow out her hair because that's how Richie prefers his girls. As if anyone, literally anyone at all, would care about what baby boo-boo Richie would want.
And it's his mom.
One day, while at home, she's inspired to do something unexpected and has the impulse to eat a marble. To give credit where credit's due, that was indeed a very unexpected thing that she did. In fact, I would not have guessed that at all had this movie not been called Swallow. She finds it thrilling and starts consuming other inedible objects around the house like a battery, metal figurines, and thumbtacks, keeping the objects that pass through her as mementos on her nightstand. I used to collect Pokemon cards, but to each their own.
During a standard ultrasound, a technician detects something unusual in her abdomen. She is quickly taken in for emergency surgery, where doctors remove a collection of foreign objects lodged in her intestines. The diagnosis reveals she has pica, a psychological disorder that drives people to consume things that aren't meant to be eaten. Concerned for her well-being, Richie's parents arrange for her to see a psychiatrist in the city. In her therapy sessions, Hunter explains that she swallows objects because she's a texture girly, and right before leaving hints that she may have had a rocky relationship with her mother, because therapists love cliffhangers.
You can't have a breakthrough in 50 minutes. You get real close and then, oops, time's up, bitch. Good luck over the weekend alone.
Richie hires Lue, a Syrian immigrant and family friend, to watch over Hunter while he is at work. Hunter feels trapped and initially resents Lue, who dismisses her condition as a product of privilege, as if he knows anything. Fuck you, Lue. During therapy, Hunter eventually shares that she was not raised by her biological father and has never met him, though she knows his name and keeps a picture of him. She was conceived as a result of her mother's assault by a stranger she had met at the bar. The man was convicted and served time in prison for his crime. Totally not a big deal or anything. Her words, not mine.
If I tell you, you have to promise that you're not going to make a big deal about it. I promise.
One day, Hunter finds out her psychiatrist is definitely not a girl's girl and overhears Richie talking to her on the phone. She realizes he has bribed the doctor to disclose details of their sessions. The betrayal sends her into a panic, prompting her to swallow a miniature screwdriver. Lue finds her choking and urgently calls for help. After surgery to remove the object, Michael and Catherine arrange for Hunter to be committed to a psychiatric hospital until she gives birth, warning that Richie will divorce her should she refuse to go. However, Lue, who becomes a real bro and has come to care for her, secretly helps her escape into the woods, making it look like she fled on her own.
Bathroom? Hurry back. You got it.
What I want, you got.
Then he says, hurry back.
Hunter hitchhikes to a motel and calls Richie, who pleads with her to return. She confesses that she rushed into marriage and pregnancy to please him, but refuses to come back. When he responds with insults, she destroys her phone, spending the night watching TV and having a girl dinner consisting of soil from outside.
The next day, she hitchhikes to the home of her biological father, William Irwin, who is celebrating his birthday with family and friends. He and his wife Lucy assume Hunter is one of the children's parents, but she privately reveals her identity to William. In an emotional exchange, William expresses deep remorse for his crime, and when Hunter asks whether he feels ashamed of her or if she is like him, he firmly denies both.
Finding a sense of closure, Hunter visits a clinic and receives medication to terminate the pregnancy. She takes the pills while having lunch in a food court, experiencing the abortion in a public restroom. Ready to talk about our ratings?
Yeah, let's do it.
What did you have for plot?
I gave plot a 2. Swallow is a compelling story to show the downside of marrying into money and the expectations forced on Hunter to perform as a perfect wife. The feeling of being trapped and undermined is so present and suffocating that it feels like a nearly impossible situation to escape from, even though practically speaking it should be. It's an excellent example of how isolated people must feel trying to leave domestic violence situations, but I didn't give it the full 3 because I wanted to know more about Hunter's past. While we get some tidbits to understand the source of her pica, I feel like we may have benefited from understanding why she rushed into the relationship with Richie and what got us to this point. Like even like a small little like montage of like pictures or something just to show like what the start of their relationship is, because we get a couple of conversations like the parents barely know her. They're like, well, what was it like when you married my son? And I was like, oh, you weren't there? Like,
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Did you just meet her the other day? Like, what's going on here?
Like I want some of those blanks filled in just to understand the dynamic a little bit more.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
How about you?
I gave plot a 2 as well. I said Swallow is an emotional ride of a film. While on the surface, it may seem like just a story about a woman who developed pica, there are many layers that unravel throughout, and revelations about our protagonist are uncovered. Initially, I wasn't going to score this film very high from a scariness perspective, but as I sat with the film after my second viewing, the situation Hunter finds herself in is honestly terrifying. The complete loneliness, lack of support, and outright emotional abuse is enough to make my skin crawl. That being said, I did ultimately give it just the 2 as I found it being more aligned as a drama, and I was more sad than anything else.
Yeah, I don't find this particularly scary. I was like, oh, weirdly billed as a horror, but it's really just like a, please don't put that in your mouth. Like,
it's like unsettling, don't get me wrong.
Oh,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
more drama and that. Like, I was just more upset than scared, like most of the time.
Yeah, I don't know. When I felt like when I saw previews for it, this was like my first time seeing it, but I remember being interested in it because they build it as like almost like this huge psychological struggle. And it's really not, aside from like what she talks about with her therapist and everything. And it just doesn't, like, yeah, it's awful, these things that she's swallowing, and that's what you're concerned about. Like, she's going to hurt herself or this unborn child. But then, like, that's not it. Like,
yeah, I mean, I obviously have no experience with pica or anything. Like, this could be a lot for someone who does, and it could be scary in that sense. But on the outside looking in, it's not a scary film.
yeah, right. Like, it's just like, oh, you're swallowing that? Don't do it. Like,
Yeah, please don't put that in your mouth. That's not supposed to be there. Please.
Yeah.
No.
What did you have for suspense for this?
I gave it a 1. I said, for me, the suspense really comes through the scenes in which she's eating bigger and bigger objects, as well as her escape towards the end. Those scenes are pretty few and far between, at least in the context of the overall story, and the escape scene ends before it really ramps up to anything, so that's why I just gave it the 1.
Yeah. I gave it a 1 as well. I said very few anxiety-inducing moments. I was more or less worried when she started eating more dangerous objects, but that's about it. Like, at least with like the marble, I'm like, I could get that. Like, that seems like a very smooth texture. Maybe you would like that. Like, but when she
Right.
starts doing like the pointy stuff and like finds that her tongue's bleeding, I'm like, oh, well, maybe don't do that again. And she's just like, no, just keep
No.
going. Like,
Yeah, she eats the thumbtack, and I feel like that would be an immediate go to the doctor type thing, but she doesn't go till later.
yeah.
And there's all these things. I'm like, I'm no doctor, but I feel like just eating one thumbtack is enough to like really mess up your insides, right?
Right. Well, and then when she swallows the battery, I was like, oh, no. Like,
Yeah, I mean, they did make it a point to say that could have killed you
right.
had it corroded or anything like that and the acid got in there. But I'm like, girl, what are we doing? I mean, I know it's a psychological issue. So like to say don't do that isn't going to help. But
Right.
it's frustrating to watch a little bit because you're like, I know that that's not good. And I'm sure she knows it's not good, but she can't help it.
Yeah, there is one scene, like, when she first tries to swallow the tack, like, she does, like, injure her tongue, and then she spits it back out and puts it on the counter, and then we see her try to, like, go into another room and forget about it, and she kind of hears, like, a little bit of a voice, or, like, there's, like, a tingling music to, like, kind of bring her focus back to the tack, like, no, I'm gonna be swallowing this.
Yeah. I just, couldn't imagine that. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, no,
Ugh.
I don't get it, but, like, I sympathize with people that have the condition, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do find it's funny, though, that they did just kind of jump to it. It must be like an iron deficiency because pica was very common back in the day, like for, people that just weren't getting enough iron, and then they would eat soil in pregnancy. Like they talk about it in the show I love, Catherine the Great. It's just called The Great, but she's eating dirt like during like a big meeting with like a bunch of I think like Swedish people, but she's just eating dirt in her tent, and they're like, "Please stop."
No, it tastes nummies.
Yes, but yeah, I thought it was interesting that they just jumped to it being an iron deficiency. I guess with the pregnancy, though, it does make a little bit more sense. But
I think it's a little bit more than that, but
yeah,
what do I know?
at this point,
What do
at this
I know?
rate, I was like, oh yeah, it's a little bit more than just some vitamins.
Right. We could just have the vitamins instead of eating jacks and marbles and tacks and all that. But hey,
Yeah, right.
what did you have for atmosphere?
I gave it a 0. I said this takes place in their luxury modern home, so nothing really to add here.
Yeah,
How about
I give it
you?
a 0. The movie largely takes place in their mansion home, so there isn't really much to say about the setting that adds to the scariness.
Yeah, they kind of have a little bit of a "don't worry, darling" kind of effect too, like with these big glass windows that she's peering out of sometimes. But other than like when he brings around his one friend that wants to hug people, like that was unsettling, but I wouldn't even call him part of the setting.
No, that's villain. He's the villain.
He's just the
That scene
villain.
was so weird. Can I have a hug?
I'm lonely because I'm not brave enough to ask for a kiss. Like, what?
That scene
You
was
just-
so... I don't know if there was probably some meaning behind it. I didn't catch it. I was like, what the hell?
I think it was like, this is one, her sense of self is so diminished that she doesn't see it as like an attack or anything. She's just like, you do know I'm your friend's wife and you just congratulated me on my pregnancy, but okay, sure,
Yeah.
let's hug it out. And then she felt like comfort in that because she doesn't get it from people around her, I guess. But then she sees him hugging somebody else at a different party and she looks like disappointed. Like she thought like their connection was special or something.
I know,
Even
that's
though like it's not
sad.
like a crush or anything. It's just like,
Damn,
I
I thought
thought
we had
you-
more.
yeah, I thought you also sought me out because you needed human comfort, but really you're just a perv. Like, I guess.
He just needs everyone's human comfort, you know?
Yeah, right. This is Greg. Can we all hug Greg? Like,
Group hug. Yay,
Right.
Greg.
good job, Greg. What did you have for the villain?
Oh, I gave him a 0. I said, honestly, some of the worst people and characters we have covered, but I am in no way afraid of the needle dick Richie and his shitty parents. Hunter's father can be seen as villainous, however, his heinous actions happened in the past, and the present version of him doesn't do anything scary that would warrant consideration in factoring into the score.
Right. Yeah, I didn't even really consider him a factor, honestly, when I did my own rating, because he's one,
Right.
remorseful. Like when he briefly talks about the experience, like because she asked him about it, he does say at one point that he feels powerful, and I was like, oh no, here it comes, here he is, like he's still the monster. And then he was like, no, but I realized like this was terrible. I should never have done that. And I was like, oh, not a threat.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I just want to throw it in there because, like,
yeah,
he was a villain at one point in the story, but it's not really a factor. So I just wanted to at
Yeah.
least bring it up.
and not to her, basically, in this situation, which is who we're following. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I gave it a low score as well. I gave it only a 1. I said Richie's family is the worst by stifling Hunter's independence, but they aren't your typical horror movie monster, and the forced isolation they put on Hunter is stressful, but not scary, just frustrating. And the only time I was ever like, oh, that's a little dark, I guess, is just how quickly Richie turns on Hunter when she says, I'm like I'm not coming back, or
Mhm.
when she says like I think she just says I still have feelings for you, but I realized I rushed into the relationship.
Yeah.
And he was like, what do you think you're gonna do? You can't do anything. Like it's much worse. Like I think he calls her the C word and all that stuff.
Yeah, at the end.
Yeah, he's just very violently like verbally abusing her at that point.
Yeah. I will say, like, I gave it a 0. I do want to give it a caveat that I am a man. I'm not in a domestic violence situation. So where that could be, like, obviously extremely terrifying. I was just so irritated with these people that I'm like, fuck you, I don't care.
Right.
Like, however, in that instance, especially when he's saying all these terrible things, like that's scary as shit in a real world situation. Me, however, in context of this movie, at the time, I was
Right.
I was over it. I don't care. I'm not afraid of you. I hate you. I literally just go away. That's just how I felt. But I don't want to diminish that situation because she's in a really bad spot. So.
Yeah, and they've just pushed her down to the lowest self-esteem wise. So I'm sure him saying that to her was very detrimental to her.
Mhm.
But yeah, they're just not a monster in that sense, or
Mhm.
they weren't hitting her or anything. It was just the whole needing to be in control of everything she did.
Yeah. But good for her because at that point she's like, no.
No,
And
I
she's
just won't
like,
do
I'm
that.
leaving.
Yeah, I
And
got
we
my
never see
dirt.
them.
I'm happy with it.
Right. And then we never see them again. It's not like
Yeah,
he
I thought they
busted
would have
down the door.
right. I thought he would have sought her out, but no, they don't even try.
No. I'm like, good. Bye.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that it didn't go that way. She got kind of her closure and then just kind of moved on with her life. We didn't have to see Richie or his parents anymore.
Right.
Hate. Flames on the side of my face, heaving flames. Oh,
Yes. So much.
hate 'em. Did you give the movie your extra special point?
I did. I thought it was interesting commentary, even though it wasn't your typical horror. I did like the drama aspects of it. I do love a drama. So uh, I did find it funny too, in a way of how here's this weird situation that she's in, she's being stifled by these people, but then she's also self-harming as well. So it's kind of weird to root for her as well, because you don't know if she's just, in a sense, just wanting to break free so she can be free to go swallow dangerous things alone.
Mhm.
But the more you watch, the more you're oh, it's all tied back to him. So once she's away from him and she can be rid of herself of this pregnancy,
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't have any reason to continue.
Yeah.
But
Maybe I don't, like I said, I don't know how pica works. I don't know if that's something you could just I'm done now, because
yeah, I don't know.
I feel like she needs a ton of more therapy maybe to work through that, because also it's tied to him, but also her past, right?
Yeah,
What
I don't
happened?
know.
And I
I
don't know
feel
if
like
that.
the ending sort of implied that once she was able to terminate the pregnancy, that maybe she was able to kind of lift herself out of it.
Yeah. I'd be curious if it's a light switch. She's like, okay, I don't have to eat anything anymore. Or if it's
Yeah.
more okay, I gotta ease myself out of it. Maybe it'll be easier for her to stop. But I don't know.
I don't know. I kind of took how they focused in on her swallowing the pills, that it was
Mhm.
it was also part of another dangerous thing she was swallowing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of took it as that was kind of the end of it. But
Yeah. I took it the whole movie to me seemed like a body autonomy type
yeah,
theme, and especially with the end swallowing that pill, she kind of took her power back.
right.
So yeah, she was swallowing objects throughout the whole movie. Ends with her swallowing that pill.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of just the connection that we both kind of saw with that.
Yes. What about you? Did you give it your extra special point?
I did. This is my second time watching this movie, and while part of me doesn't want to give it the extra point because I don't want to bump up the scariness, because this movie it's not scary. It's unsettling, like I said, but I really enjoyed it, and it could be a lot for somebody to watch. So I did ultimately give it that point.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like if you have a traumatic relationship experience, this would be a little triggering. But yeah, it's not your typical scary movie.
No. All right, adding up the points, I gave it a 4 and you gave it a 5. So very similar, very close.
Yes. Yes.
It sounds right.
Right. I
It
mean,
feels correct.
It's more or less just disturbing that she's eating this stuff and that she wants to keep eating it. But yeah, other than that, there's no jump scares or anything waiting for you.
No, just, yeah. If watching someone eat sharp objects is scary to you, then yes, it's scary. And the abuse. We're going to talk about the abuse.
Yeah.
I would say it's more of a drama.
Right. I was the most concerned when she was retrieving the stuff that's passed through her from the toilet. And I was like, oh no. Oh, let's not focus more on that.
Yeah. No doo-doo things, please.
Yeah, please.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show and listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, giving us a 5-star rating is super helpful. We'll always appreciate that. If you are watching the YouTube version, you could like and comment on this video and let us know what you'd like us to cover next.
You can find us on social media using 13 Degrees of Screams.
This has been 13 Degrees of Screams, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.